Still looking at me. Right.
What up, ladies and gentlemen, Mighty here. Welcome back again to another reaction video. Here's another request that needs to be taken care of for tonight, and this is from Shadow. So, looks like I'm going to be reacting to the title known as 7 Popular Wrestlers Vince McMahon Never Wanted to Push, mainly to WrestleMania. What are things that we know about Vince? Well, he's all about money, a mastermind, manipulative, and a total ass. So there must be a reason why that he would never push any wrestlers this far to their career. One way to find out. So, and just to let you know that I don't own this video. This is actually from WrestleMania. So let's go ahead and check this out. And if you have any requested videos that you want me to react, I'll be more than happy to do so for the sake of entertainment. But most of all, this is me just giving my best. And time to react.
If you're a WWE superstar, you face an uphill battle if Vince McMahon doesn't see anything in you. Nonetheless, some superstars have won over Mr. McMahon, enjoying success despite initial opposition by the WWE's chairman. Join us now as WrestleMania looks at wrestlers Vince McMahon never wanted to push. Number 1. Daniel Bryan. While fans should never take anyone's word as gospel, especially in the world of professional wrestling where deceit is inherent to the business at all levels ranging from how promoters treat the fans and their wrestlers, it's always interesting to get the perspective of a former insider. In this case, former WWE writer Bryan discussed how Vince McMahon had reservations about Daniel Bryan, the superstar he decided to have win 2011's Money in the Bank ladder match. According to Eck, I started working for WWE at the end of August 2011, 6 weeks after Bryan won the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match. Bryan's victory was surprising at the time because he wasn't getting much of a push beforehand. He wasn't getting much of one after winning the blue briefcase either. In fact, I was informed by some of my colleagues that Vince McMahon was having buyer's remorse about making Bryan SmackDown's Mr. Money in the Bank. The question was no longer when Bryan would cash in and win the title, it was whether he should be the first Money in the Bank winner to cash in and fail. Apparently, Eck decided to give Bryan some help, putting him into a storyline romance with AJ Lee so he could get some TV time and help his case for a successful cash-in. An opportunity eventually arose when Mark Henry was scheduled to drop the World Heavyweight Championship to the Big Show at 2011's TLC pay-per-view. The logical solution was simply to have Big Show defeat Henry for the title, but one of the writers suggested in a booking meeting that after Big Show wins, Henry lays him out after the match, and that brings Bryan out to cash in the Money in the Bank contract and win the title from Big Show. McMahon looked up at the ceiling for several seconds, as he often did when the wheels in his head were turning. I was surprised he was even considering it, but I was absolutely stunned when he said he liked the idea. Not only did he like it, but he already knew where he wanted to go with the storyline. McMahon said that after Bryan wins the title, success will go to his head and he'll gradually turn heel. Bryan would hold the belt until 2012's WrestleMania, where he lost the belt in an incredible 18 seconds, a sign some fans saw as evidence the WWE had soured on Bryan again. Whatever the case, Bryan's return to action in 2018 and his subsequent push suggest Bryan is firmly entrenched as one of the WWE's top stars. Number 2. Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler has one of the most topsy-turvy careers in WWE history, beginning with his run in the Spirit Squad that started off strong.
I remember
a tag
that.
Team Championship reign,
That was his earliest
saw him
career.
buried by D-Generation X. He really was buried, then shipped off.
The feud with the
This would mirror
DX.
Ziggler's later career as he won the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2012, but made several unsuccessful attempts to cash in. What was going on? According to Bryan Eck, the WWE's head honcho was no fan of Ziggler. To say McMahon had lost faith in Ziggler during his time would be a major understatement. Even though Ziggler was getting a good reaction from the fans, McMahon was highly critical of Ziggler's instincts in the ring and his promos. Triple H wasn't a big Ziggler fan either. He thought Ziggler didn't take direction well and was overly obsessed with trying to be the next Shawn Michaels. However, Ziggler did have one important supporter, WWE
that
Hall
explains
of
it.
Famer Pat
Doing
Patterson,
that.
who'd been a member of
the
McMahon's
sweet
inner
chant
circle on the
music
creative
kick.
side for decades, and now had emeritus status. According to Eck, Patterson wanted Dolph to shock the world with a successful cash-in at WrestleMania, but McMahon rejected the idea. Patterson tried again, and his persistence paid off to a limited extent, as McMahon began the Raw production meeting that next day by announcing that Ziggler would cash in the contract on Alberto Del Rio on that night's Raw to become World Heavyweight Champion. After making the announcement to a room full of surprise writers and producers, McMahon said he wanted to be clear that we are not pushing Dolph. McMahon explained that he was going through with the cash-in and title switch because he wanted a big surprise moment for the night after WrestleMania. As well received as Ziggler's push was, McMahon stayed true to his word and Ziggler dropped the belt after returning from a concussion. His career has never been the same since. Number 3. Ember Moon. Ember Moon has a persona far different than your average female wrestler, adopting a hybrid identity somewhere between a werewolf and a cosplay enthusiast. Moon is considered one of the best women to come out of NXT, but rumors persist that Vince McMahon has some sort of personal dislike, some might even call it hatred for Moon. Thus Moon's main roster career has been hit and miss, with her only recently receiving any kind of sustained push. Number 4. Roman Reigns. As incredible as it may seem, Roman Reigns wasn't Vince McMahon's choice as the WWE's top guy. During an episode of the Steve Austin Show, the topic of Roman Reigns and Big E came up, with Pro Wrestling Torch's Wade Keller discussing what he'd heard about Reigns' push. Sean Waltman was on PW Torch livecast a few months ago, and he said that he told Hunter back then that Roman Reigns is potentially a guy they should build around, so I blame Sean Waltman. But Hunter a year ago was debating Vince McMahon. Hunter saying, "I like Roman," and Vince was saying, "I like Big E." I mean, clearly, Roman is way ahead of him now, but I mean, not that Vince wasn't for Roman, but Vince's big project was Big E at that moment. While Big E is enjoying continued success as a member of the New Day, speculation about a push as a main event single star has persisted for at least a year, which makes more sense if Keller's comments are accurate. Number 5. Mick Foley. Jim Ross took advantage of some incredibly misused WCW talent, bringing in names such as Steve Austin and Mick Foley, and later The Big Show and Chris Jericho, but that didn't mean Vince McMahon was as enthusiastic about them as Ross. In the case of Mick Foley, McMahon had his own ideas with what to do with Foley's Cactus Jack character. According to James Dixon's book Titan Shattered, McMahon met with Foley and told him he envisioned Foley as a character like the villainous Hannibal Lecter. Foley would wear a mask and become Mason the Mutilator. Foley balked and was ready to pass on a WWF contract. Before he did, he told McMahon why he wasn't signing, and the WWF Kingpin agreed to let Foley become Mankind. Not what Foley had hoped for, but a compromise he was willing to make.
Now it makes a lot sense
Perhaps
why
owing to
the
Foley's
mask.
refusal to go with the Mason the Mutilator character, McMahon didn't envision much for Foley in the long term, despite an initial push against The Undertaker. However, McMahon eventually saw Foley's promise when Mankind did a sit-down interview with Jim Ross, explaining the twisted workings of his brain. Number 6. Cesaro. Despite a fantastic career on the indie scene as well as the height and physique Vince McMahon seeks in his top stars, Cesaro was initially pushed as US champion with a 240-day reign, but things quickly deteriorated. Cesaro debuted on the main roster in 2012, but just a year later, Dave Meltzer was reporting that WWE sees him as boring. In 2014, things came to a head when Vince McMahon appeared on the Steve Austin Show and told Stone Cold why more stars weren't reaching the same heights as Austin had. This is a different group of guys and girls. It's millennials. They're not as ambitious, quite frankly, and they're not trepidatious at all. I just don't think they necessarily want to reach for that brass ring. I would suggest this locker room is not as ambitious as the one you were in. Correct. Again, I said it's millennials. It's a different point of view. If you reach for that brass ring and you fall on your butt, no one wants to fail, and there's this feeling, this insecurity that if you fail, you're exposed. I think that's largely pretty much what it is. One person who didn't take McMahon's comments kindly was Cesaro, who quickly responded to McMahon, saying, "I was actually listening to it on the drive to the next city. I was not very happy about it, to say the least, because I couldn't disagree more. The next day I walked into his office and said, 'Challenge accepted.' That's how I deal with things, head on. I'd like to say I've been doing pretty good so far." While Cesaro hasn't been a main event player, he's been pushed consistently ever since his candid talk with Vince McMahon. Number 7. Christian.
That definitely would piss him off.
After the innovative team of Edge and Christian parted ways, Vince McMahon didn't think much of Christian as a singles competitor. Wrestling's Captain Charisma apparently was anything but charismatic in Vince McMahon's eyes if WWE creative guru Bruce Pritchard is to be believed. During an episode of his podcast Something to Wrestle With, Pritchard discussed the way Vinnie Mac saw Christian. Vince didn't feel that Christian had the personality to connect with the audience in a big way. He didn't think he was larger than life, and at that time, Vince wanted the top guys needed to be larger than life. You needed to be The Rock, needed to be Stone Cold, you needed to be The Undertaker. While Christian wasn't buried, he didn't receive the same push as Edge, something Pritchard elaborated on, saying, "Every time you would come up with an idea for Edge or Christian, it would be like, okay, there is a lot of excitement there with Edge. Oh by God, we could do this with him. We could do this with him. A big good looking and then we'd get to Christian and it would just be, ugh. God,
The bleeps
do we have
crack
to
me
shoot
up
him?
sometimes.
Do we have to see that face? What's he gonna say? Vince felt Edge was the star of the team, and while Christian had the tools, best damn worker on the card, and he would always say that and loved him personally, just didn't think that personality transcended and got to the audience. Christian eventually got a main event push, but only after leaving the WWE for TNA Wrestling, where he became a main event player. Christian would return to the WWE, winning the World Heavyweight Championship twice. And number 8, all of Canada. Apparently, Christian isn't the only Canadian star who had trouble getting a push. In fact, it appears that any Canadian wrestler had their work cut out for them in Vince
Lance
McMahon's
Storm.
opinion. During an appearance on The Rich Eisen show, Chris Jericho discussed a bizarre conversation he had with Vince McMahon when the subject of Y2J playing a babyface arose. In the mid-2000s, Vince McMahon decided that you couldn't be from Canada and be a babyface in the WWE for whatever reason. No one would cheer a Canadian was his mindset. I'm not kidding. I was told that you can't be from Winnipeg anymore. You're from Tampa. I only live in Tampa. I'm not from there. Where were you born? Manhasset, New York. Ah, sounds too country. Now you're from Manhattan, New York. There was a whole bunch of us that were Canadian. Edge, Christian, Val Venus, a bunch of other guys. You just decided one time you can't be a babyface and be from Canada. For people to really cheer you, you have to be from the United States. It probably lasted about 6 months. McMahon had a moment of lucidity and changed his mind, but this shows you how his quirks can cause many a heartache for aspiring stars. But there you have it, guys. 7 wrestlers Vince McMahon didn't want to push, as well as anyone from one particular country. In hindsight, was Mr. McMahon right about not wanting to push any of these wrestlers? Who do you think deserves a bigger push right now? Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
You know, that would explains the reason why Chris Jericho don't want anything to do with WWE, nor mainly is Vince. That's the big reason why he decided to sign the contract to AEW, and which that he's actually doing pretty good on a different wrestling brand, and being as the leader of the Inner Circle. But damn, I mean, so many names from Roman Reigns to Daniel Bryan, and you know, it's starting to make a lot of sense that, yeah, they definitely have that charisma, they have that stamina, they have that kind of potential, and coming from Vince, just always have just his own opinion that is considered, you know, that's harsh, and wanted to try to push them to get into a bigger highlights to their careers, and just don't want it to be involved and try to, you know, provoked. That's crazy, man. That's just crazy. Only Vince can do something like this, and he can actually try to get away with it. But here are the stories from Cesaro. I mean, ouch. It kind of makes you wonder why he's so pissed off. And yet that he did a good job with Shinsuke Nakamura, and that's the reason that they were once as the tag team champions on SmackDown. and they were on the roll. And it's just wow, man. Well, anyways, that's all the time I have. So thank you, Shadow. And I also understand that there's another trailer that I got from him, so that will be for another time. But until then, if you guys enjoy this, and if so, let's leave it a likes and also leave a comments down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. So take care, guys, and be safe.